G'day everyone, Rune here, and this is chapter 6 of my What If Naruto Was a Girl series. In the last chapter, we witnessed the events of the first part of the Chunin exam arc, from the first test right up to halfway through the preliminary matches. To quickly recap the major changes, due to several previously established changes to our cast, Sasuke does not get the curse mark placed on him, and Team 7 are able to get through the Forest of Death on their own. After they all reach the tournament part of the exams, I decided to randomise the matches for sheer fun. The current victors of this round are Yoroi Akado, Mitsumi Tsurugi, Gara, Sasuke, Naraka, and Sakura. This is where the next chapter begins. Next is Ino vs Kankuro. Now, while I see Ino being a little bit stronger in this timeline due to the whole thing with Mitsuki, I don't see it being by any significant amount. Remember, the main reason Team 7 is so much stronger is because they've been taking advantage of the shadow clones. Ino doesn't have that, so while she may be stronger, it's not that big of a leap. Also, Kankuro is ruthless and would be going hard and fast. Sad to say, Ino is just outgunned. Next is Shikamaru vs Shino. Now, this was a tricky one for several reasons. First, both Shikamaru and Shino are very intelligent. They both know how to strategize. Second, Shikamaru is lazy, so I can see him forfeiting the match if he calculated it would be too much work. Third, I don't really know everything that either of these two know at this point, since they get so little screen time in this arc. So I can really see this going one of three ways. Either Shikamaru manages to get Shino with a shadow possession, thus rendering Shino's bugs useless since he can't issue orders. Shikamaru forfeits the match after deciding that dealing with Shino's bugs is too much effort, or Shino takes the win before Shikamaru can come to the conclusion that it's too much work, which is the least likely but still possible. So since two of those are losing scenarios for Shikamaru, I'm going to say he forfeits similarly to in canon. Finally, we have Tamari vs Hanata. And this match... oh jeez. While Hanata may be a little bit stronger here, if Tenten couldn't take Tamari out, poor Hanata doesn't stand a chance. Here, however, I can see Hanata not getting as hurt as Tenten. The reason Tenten got hurt so badly, I feel, is that Tamari saw her as someone to take somewhat seriously and had pride. With Hanata, I can see Tamari being a lot gentler but also very condescending, comparing beating up Hanata to kicking a puppy. With that, the final victors are Yoroi Akado, Mitsumi Tsurugi, Gara, Sasuke, Naraka, Sakura, Kankuro, Shino, and Tamari. Now, instead of doing the randomizer again, this time I'm just going with what I think will be interesting. Shino vs Yoroi Akado, Sakura vs Kankuro, Tamari vs Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto vs Gara, with Mitsumi getting to battle in a three-way free-for-all in the finals. With that, we move on to the training period, and for this what if, I'm going to say that Haku decides to be part of the training for all of Team 7, with him teaching each of them something different. He'll spend more time with Sakura since she has the same elements as him and thus can more readily use what he teaches. Also, he would be Sakura's only teacher, while Naruto would still have Jiraiya and Sasuke would still have Kakashi. I'm going to give each of them 3 new jutsus and a few other improvements. For Sakura, I'm going to say that she learns Hail, Water Dragon, and Purify. Purify would be linked to her medical training, which she is still pursuing in her own time. There are a lot of times where you need clean water to tend to injuries, but on the road you might not have access to properly clean water. Hail is to give her an offensive jutsu which would pair well with her strength and defense, since Hail covers a large area. And Water Dragon is a powerful jutsu which she is likely going to need facing a ninja like Kankuro. Though a small downside to learning the technique is that she can't really control it well, so she resolves to use it only as a last resort. She would also be improving her genjutsu and other healing jutsu in her spare time, as she's come to realize that she really clicks with these two styles. For Sasuke, I'm going to say that he learns the Chidori from Kakashi, but then learns to expand upon it from Haku. So not only does he have the Chidori, but the Chidori Senbone. He also learns the Phoenix Flower from his family scrolls. All the while, he's also training up his Sharingan as he feels this could be the deciding factor in his eventual match against Naruto. Now finally, Naruto. Her training is different right out of the gate. Since Jiraiya has a goddaughter in this timeline, I'm going to say he wouldn't let himself get caught perving on women. That's not the kind of first impression you want to make on a young girl, especially one you actually want to look up to you as a teacher. So instead of that scene at the bathhouse, Jiraiya instead just goes to Kakashi and asks him to introduce him to Naruto. After this, Jiraiya begins Naruto's training. However, since here Naruto never had the 5-pronged seal placed on her, the problem with the water walking and summoning becomes clear much faster. When Jiraiya forces Naruto into interacting with the Ninetales, that goes quite a bit differently. The moment Naruto hears the Ninetales' voice, she recognizes it as the voice that had been in her head back on the Great Naruto Bridge. She quickly puts 2 and 2 together and smiles at the demon behind the gate. "Hello, it's nice to finally meet you, Ninetales." The Ninetales huffs and gruffly says that the feeling is not mutual. If it weren't for the gate, he would devour her right now. He then demands to know why she's there, and Naruto says that while she'd like to stick around and chat, she's afraid they have a small problem right now. She explains to him that they're currently falling down a ravine and the walls are too smooth for her to stick to. "I don't want to die, and I don't think you want to die either. So, how's about an agreement? You supply me with your chakra when I need it, and I'll make sure that neither of us dies." The Ninetales actually finds this simultaneously amusing and interesting. He has to concede that he, indeed, doesn't want to die, and that she does have a solid argument. "Very well, child. I accept your deal." When Gara tries to kill Lee, the events don't change much aside from Naruto not shouting and trying to understand Gara, which really throws him off. When Gara talks about what happened to him in the past, Naruto wonders if she would have ended up the exact same way without Sakura and Ino. Looking at him, she can't help but see a little boy lost and alone with no one there to save him. Gara notices the way Naruto is looking at him, face devoid of fear but filled with an emotion that he doesn't know. It makes him uncomfortable. It makes him angry. He's about to attack them when Haku arrives, having heard about what had happened at the canyon and wanting to check on Naruto. When Gara leaves, Haku turns to Naruto and notices the look on her face. He asks her what's wrong, but instead of answering his question, she instead asks if Haku can teach her any water jutsu. During training, Haku is eventually able to get Naruto to tell him what's on her mind. She explains that Gara is not that different from her. If it weren't for Sakura and Ino, she could have just as easily have ended up just like Gara. It hurts her heart how no one was there to save him the way Sakura and Ino saved her. So, she wanted to save him now. She didn't know how just yet, but she was determined to save him. Hearing this, Haku smiles while shaking his head, amending his earlier thought on how Konoha would be lucky to have her as Hokage, while thinking of his own childhood. The whole world would be a much better place if people like her were in charge. For Naruto's training, she would learn the Water Senbone, Summoning, and Armor of Wind. Jiraiya would teach her this since she's going up against Gara and would probably need some defensive jutsu. Now we get to the first round of the finals. For Shino and Yoroi, this wasn't done out of finding it interesting, but simply because Yoroi and Mitsumi were the only ones available, and I think Yoroi is the more fun choice. Yoroi's whole gimmick is that he drains the chakra from his opponents, and Shino's whole thing is that he has an entire hive/colony of beetles living inside him which feed off of his chakra. So for this battle, Shino would need to be very careful not to let Yoroi get close enough to drain his chakra, while also commanding his beetles to attack him. I think that this would still be a win for Shino, because I don't think that Yoroi can drain the chakra from the beetles. He needs to make direct contact with the human. So Shino would just need to have his beetles swarm Yoroi and pin him to the ground to pull the win. Next up is Sasuke and Tenten. Now this one would be a fun match. Not only is Tamari a member of the Sand Ninjas, so there's already a bit of animosity there, but her element is also the same as Naruto's. This means that Sasuke would know how the wind element reacts to his fire and lightning elemental jutsus, because he's on the same team as Naruto and their team is a lot more closely knit in this timeline. He would be able to use Wind's weakness to his fire to his advantage and keep Tamari on the back foot. He'd be able to use his new Phoenix Flower Jutsu to surround her and prevent her from using her wind lest she blow herself up. From there, it's just a matter of Sasuke getting close enough to knock her out or render her immobile with Chidori Senbone. Now comes Sakura and Kankuro's fight. Going into this fight, Sakura would be royally pissed seeing as Kankuro had hurt Ino. So Sakura would not be holding back one bit. The moment the battle starts, she would bring up a handful of shadow clones which all charge Kankuro. Kankuro would be unimpressed, seeing the attack as sloppy and obvious, only to get smacked in the face by a haymaker, revealing it to have been a genjutsu. Bringing out his puppet quickly, he would then try using it to attack Sakura, only for her to use her hail jutsu, making him unable to get close to her. Deciding that he can always repair his puppet later, he would send it through the barrier of water, only for Sakura to use a water shield to block the attack. However, Kankuro still has a trick up his sleeve. While Sakura is temporarily unable to move, one of the puppet's arms slip around the shield and cuts her with a poison knife. Realizing what's happened, Sakura makes a hasty retreat, using hail as a cover. Once she's safely hidden, she makes work on extracting the poison, while Kankuro is looking for her. Due to her having more practice with healing now, she's able to get all of the poison out just before Kankuro finds her. Realizing that Kankuro is going for the kill in this fight, Sakura decides that she's going to need to take a gamble. Producing a handful of clones to keep Kankuro busy, she gets some distance before running through a long set of hand signs. Just as Kankuro realizes what she's about to use, it's too late, and Sakura uses her water dragon, which rushes at Kankuro and his puppet. The force of the pillar of condensed water hitting them knocks Kankuro off his feet. It's also the last straw for the already damaged puppet, which breaks apart. Sakura sweats with the strain of keeping the dragon under control, releasing it when she feels her hold starting to slip. Breathing heavily, she looks to where Kankuro is lying unconscious after having been slammed into a wall by the dragon. The announcer declares her the winner and she looks up at Ino in the stands. Grinning, Sakura gives her friend a big thumbs up before promptly passing out from exhaustion. Finally, we come to Naruto vs Gara. As Naruto is heading down to the arena, she is stopped by Sasuke and Sakura, who has recovered from her fight. They each give her their own brand of encouragement. Sakura tells Naruto to be careful, and that if she thinks Gara might kill her, there's no shame in forfeiting. While Sasuke tells her not to lose, because she's still the one he most wants to fight. The moment Naruto smiles at them, they know something's up. It's not her reassuring smile, nor her confident one. This smile was warm, but it also held a twinge of sadness. Walking past them, she tells her two teammates that she's sorry. To Sakura, she says that no matter what, she can't forfeit this match. And to Sasuke, she says that out of everyone here, he's the one she most wanted to fight as well. But right now, there was something else she wanted to do more. But she promises to not die. Stepping onto the field, Naruto prepares for the biggest fight of her life. And that, everyone, is where I'm going to leave the story for now. Join me next time as we get into the battle between Gara and Naruto and see what becomes of the Konoha Crush plan. I'm Rune. See you next chapter.